So we're here today and want to welcome everybody back for the next round of Genesis Ag podcasts. I'm Mark Rothermich, and I'm here today with Mike Rother from Arapahoe, Colorado. Mike's a producer that's been working with Genesis Ag for several years, and we'd like to welcome Mike to the call today.
How's it going, Mark?
Hey, I'm good, Mike. Really good. So give me a quick synopsis. How has your season been for 2020?
Well, and I don't know how well I can describe 2020 then. The last several years here in the High Plains have been abnormally wet. And we all knew that was the case. We all knew that this couldn't go on. And in 2020, we definitely had to pay for that. It was hot, dry, miserable. It was just an overall poor year for growing stuff. The only thing that gave us any real shot at growing anything was that we had a lot of water banked from the previous years. Our soils have tremendous water holding capacity, have 200 feet of B horizon. So, I mean, there's all the water you can have here. It's not like some of the places where you've got 4 inches of topsoil, 6 inches of B horizon, and then rock. You know, that's not what we do here, but there's only so much that can be done when it's hot, sunny, and no rain for 6 months. It's just pretty tough. We've got a lot of dryland corn out this year. That the last several years, we've been hitting home runs in the area. Everybody here has been at way high, above average corn crops. And this year, we're definitely paying for that. There's going to be a lot of zeros. There's a lot of barren plants out there that didn't even make an ear. Lots of drought stress on the stuff that did make an ear. We had a wind event come through several weeks ago. A lot of corn on the ground, not the plants, just ear drop, from plant cannibalization, stuff like that. So overall, it has been true to form. 2020 farming in the High Plains is about like 2020 in the rest of the world.
Yeah, I was going to say that, it doesn't seem like there's very many places in the country that, that 2020 has been all that friendly. I think a lot of the area that I work, everybody was excited to see 2019 end and 2020 coming in the door.
Right.
Now that we're kind of at the end of 2020, it's like, oh my gosh, not another one. So.
Yeah, I don't really, I'm happy with 2020. I don't want 2021. I'll just stick with the devil I know.
So obviously you've had some adverse conditions this year a little bit, Mike. Anything that you've seen that seems to be standing out a little bit for you this year that you're excited about?
Well, we're still in the middle of harvest, so I haven't had a chance to really spend any time analyzing anything. We've still got several weeks in front of us, fall harvest wise. We've still got milo in the field, and we've got all of our pinto beans out, all of our sunflowers out. We have 15 acres of Fremont beans that are yet to be harvested. So, we really have not had a chance to look at much from hard numbers. Everything that I've seen has been in season, it's all inferred. And during harvest, they don't let me do anything fun. They put me in a truck. So I don't even get to pick it and see anything from the combine. Everything I get to see is what the operators tell me and what the yield data shows me. So for now, all I have is anecdotal stuff. We're doing some tests with Philip. We're doing some long-term studies with different products, and I'm sure you guys are probably doing the same test on a couple of different growers, I'm sure. And visually walking through those strips, you can see differences in the corn. We have picked that one, but I have not had a chance to analyze it to see if there's a difference. So I can tell you I can see differences in the plants, but that's all I can tell you right now.
All right. So go ahead and just share with us, what were the visual responses that you saw?
Well, strip to strip, you could tell that this field was planted into really good wheat stubble, stripper stubble from last year. It was probably 70 bushel stripper stubble, which is as good as we can get in our country. That's, if you're planting into 70 bushel wheat stubble, that's That's top-notch stuff. You're guaranteed a crop if you can plant into that. Well, even with that stubble, and we dropped that, I think at it's either 10,000 or 12,000 plants. I can't remember. We're dry country. We know that water is going to be our limiting factor, so we plant accordingly. It turns out that we still planted too much. We probably should have skip rowed it, and we probably should have dropped everything down to 8,500 plants because they were all exhibiting drought stress pretty hard come August. So, there was 2 strips that were much healthier. There were 2 strips that were not as healthy, and that's what I know. I double blinded even myself. I don't even know which ones were which.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. So what products did you have? I mean, is there anything that you can share with us? Is it top secret information, or is it conventional Genesis Ag products?
I'm pretty sure that most of it is conventional stuff. Some of it is top secret. Some of it just came in a jug. It said apply here. So that's what we did. So I can't tell you exactly what all was happening. I do know that Carbos was a giant piece of some of it, and which is great because I love Carbos. It's just a generic biology promoter. So, I'm all on board with doing more Carbos. But as far as any magic bugs, I don't know what those all were. When Philip gives me a jug and tells me to go do it, I'd be a great Manchurian candidate. I just go do it.
So tell us a little bit about what products from Genesis you've used in the past, or, well, first off, I know you've got a pretty long-term relationship with Philip. How long have you been working with Philip?
Oh man, I've worked with Philip we're probably closing in on 10 years. I don't think we're quite there yet, but it's a fairly significant, before Genesis Ag was a thing, I've been working with Philip. So,
right.
So that's been a while. Genesis Ag is what, 5 years old now, 6 years old. So
yeah, I think about 6, if I'm right, somewhere in that neighborhood. But yeah, so you've been with Philip several years.
Yeah.
So share with us what products you've worked with that you've liked, that have worked. Obviously, you're, as you mentioned, you're in a high plains area, a little bit different soil conditions and challenges, but just share what things you've seen, what things you work with that have been good, solid producers.
Sure. Well, we've used basically every product that Genesis has ever offered, and we just keep gravitating back towards Carbos every time. I love Carbos. I love biology in general, and Carbos to me is the best bang for the buck. I'm not trying to solve all of my biological imbalances in one fell swoop. I'm just trying to get life in the soil, period, whether it's good or bad or anything, and then let them sort themselves out. So for me, Genesis is Carbos is so cheap per acre. It makes sense for me to run. So we just run that. Anytime we do anything, it's got some Carbos in it.
Okay.
We've ran Revita M, we've ran Zenergy, we've ran Rhizonate, we've ran Morphos, we've ran all the biological stuff, and I know they all work. One thing I have challenges with in my country is on our dryland acres is trying to make them pay product, and so we're doing more like what you're doing, and we're concentrating the stuff and we're putting it in the band, and we're trying to get it where it's more, we're trying to help the plant instead of trying to solve all of the problems in the dirt. And I don't know if that's the right answer or not, but it's something that I can do more affordably and do it long enough term to hopefully get us where we want to go.
Right. Yeah. So tell us a little bit, what are some of the unique challenges that you've got there in the high plains? I mean, do you have pH challenges, or what type, for, a lot of guys that will listen to this may be used to the Midwest soils.
Right.
Tell us what's unique about Mike Rother's farm.
Well, I don't know if it's unique because, my farm's the same as everybody else. There's a bazillion acres here in the high plains, but my dirt's all 8.5 pH. I would say I would say 90% of the acres within 100 miles of me is going to be 5 points either side of 8. There's going to be some 7.5. There's going to be a lot of 8.5. There's going to be some 9 here and there. So, if you just want a quick and dirty pH, just figure 8 and you'll be pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Every field in our part of the world, 10% of it is what we call white dirt. And white dirt is stuff, it's all highly erodible. So over the course of a bazillion years, fires would blow through the prairie, and then it'd be windy and it'd blow all the topsoil off. So you got all these little knobby hills that have 0 organic matter, 9 pH, tremendous water holding capacity, very high clay content, which is just kind of different for the area. Doesn't release metals, especially zincs, irons, loves to hang on to phosphate, all calcium based stuff. So stuff like that, and then you hear guys back east, oh, we need to put lime on. Oh, you need calcium. What? No, why would you do that? They're facing a different challenge. So basically, for most guys who know what they're doing with their dirt, if you come to the high plains, just do everything wrong that and you'll be right. That's about the best way to explain it.
Yeah. And, and we're learning, I think, with Genesis Ag, that's one of the things that we're learning, is that there are a lot of conditions that kind of become more challenging as we try to change the biological levels. And so can you speak a little bit to what your experience has been for you in that realm? Or, are you finding keys that you think may be making a difference for you?
For sure. Yeah. I know that Genesis Ag biology works because Morphos, this is a little known secret. Morphos is kind of my baby, and I love it. One of the things Philip did here years ago was he came to me and says, now, Mike, what do we as a company, as Genesis Ag, need to bring to the forefront to help keep us in the lead? And I'm like, Philip, man, I got 80,000 pounds of phos here in my dirt, but it's all tied up with my calcium. So a few years later, Philip brought out a product called Liquid PSB. And if you think carefully, Liquid PSB is exactly what I asked for. So we did some tests with Philip. We ran some PSB. We just ran it strip 120 foot with sprayer, did soil tests, did tissue tests, and it changed the available phos content in my corn plant via the tissue tests at Tassel. It changed them by 20 parts per million or something stupid like that. It was a lot. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that was pretty close. So I know the biology works. And of course, PSB is no longer offered from Genesis Ag, but there is a product called Morphos, which is suspiciously similar. It's just not near as much fun to say.
I think that's one of the keys that's very important for us to talk about is, that Genesis Ag is, a real company. How about if we do this real quick? You've got a lot of years of experience with Philip, and, along with that, Genesis Ag. What's different about working with Philip and or Genesis Ag for Mike Rother?
Well, that's an easy one, Mark. That story I just relayed, how many times could you go to some other outfit and have them come to you and say, Mark, what do you need? That's not how it works. In the ag industry, everyone comes to you, says, this is what I have and you need to buy it. They're not asking how they can help you. They're asking how they can help you sell their own product. It's like, no, man, if your product is addressing a need, that's great. But if there's a hole in the system, that I can see, I can identify, but I'm not smart enough. I don't have the resources to be able to create something like a PSB or a Morphos or anything like that. So the willingness that Genesis has always shown to listen to not just what I say, but to lots of growers. I mean, I don't get that anywhere else. How cool is that to work with a company that cares enough to actually listen to you and then deliver on it? That's the difference.
Good, good. Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that with us. And I think, I think you're right. That's kind of the underlying feeling with everybody. I think with Genesis is, we're trying to bring products that will truly make a difference for the producer. So, yeah.
Well, like you're doing with all the tests you're doing this year and all the stuff you're doing, try to identify problems and try to figure out ways to make long-term solutions. We may not have exactly what you guys want, but we'll figure it out. We'll make it work. We'll get you where you want to go. And what a great deal. That's just something that you don't get much of.
So any other products? You've talked a little bit about the biology. Is there anything else in carbos? You mentioned carbos.
Yeah, love carbos.
Yeah.
All the biologies are great. I absolutely know that all the biology is exactly what they say. I just know that sometimes my dirt might be a little tougher than what they can always do. So we're trying to figure out new ways to use them, place them for success. One of the things in our country that we've learned a long time ago with fertility is banding. Get a good concentration of that stuff. That broadcast deal, that's not a good deal. And I have a feeling that with our bugs, it's the same deal. They need to have a certain concentration for them to have a chance to survive in this high pH, dry country. So we've been moving more towards banding our biology, running them in furrow, trying to get them closer to established roots quicker. And I think that's definitely helped. But I'd like to be able to get some sort of like a magic bug buffer or something at some point, where something you could dump in the jug to give the bugs an even better fighting chance in tougher conditions, maybe.
Right. Yeah. And obviously, as pH goes to the levels you're talking about, some bugs are going to be challenged
For sure.
Thriving in those conditions. So, yeah. And I think that's one of the things that producers have to keep in mind is that every region, every soil has different types of challenges. And, there's not always one solution. There's not always a silver bullet that you do this and every acre, it's all going to be the same.
For sure. Yeah. And we're not talking about chemistry here. There's no hard cut and dry answer for what the right answer is. We're talking about life, and life's messy. Sometimes you got to kind of wallow through the mud a little bit to figure out where the gate's at. So,
yeah. Yep.
One of the other products that I think can get overlooked, because let's face it, it stinks, is Vita and Terra. That's a terrific product for guys that have specific needs. For us in our country, we love humic acid. We love banding humic acid. We've used humic acid for 15 years on the farm. And the idea there is to try to help buffer that calcium, give that fertility a chance to be free. And I think the Vita and Terra fills a very similar role. And it's more versatile than the traditional humic acids like what we've historically used. We have a couple half pivots of alfalfa for the cows. And we started putting Vita and Terra on there, and the alfalfa guys, I don't run swathers and balers because they kill people. So we have other guys that do that. And that guy is like, man, why is this alfalfa? It's farther along than it should be. And every time we'd apply that Vita and Terra, it seemed like we were cutting off about 5 days between harvesting. And the last 2 years, we've been running Vita and Terra pretty consistently. Maybe not between every cutting, but whenever we had a free spare moment with the sprayer, we'd run in there and blast it on real quick or run it through the pivot. And we've gotten 5 cuttings of alfalfa the last 2 years, which in this country is pretty uncommon. Now, granted, they've been longer years. I don't think we can do that every year, but that's an all right deal. So we're going to keep playing with that in our nutrient tests. Every time we run it, they get a good bounce. So I think for guys that do hay, Vita and Terra is sure something to look at and do some tests on and give her a try.
Mm-hmm. How is the handling of Vita and Terra versus the Humex that you might have used in the past? Is there any difference?
No real difference. All the Humex that I've ever used, they've either been granular dry or liquid already. So for people who don't know, Vita and Terra is a liquid product. And I would say the biggest difference with the Vita and Terra is it's not quite as dirty. If you were running like a red ball system or something like that, you'd have a little better chance of seeing your red balls versus like a traditional humic acid. The main difference would be, and this won't mean anything to guys who've never been around livestock, but if you get Vita and Terra on your hands, it's like you dipped your hand in manure pit water for like a day and a half. I mean, you can't, it smells like stank water on your hands for a while. And it's a terrible product. I don't recommend smelling it, but it works awesome. It's tremendous at what it does. It just smells bad.
Yeah, Vita and Terra is one of those, don't need to stick your nose too close to
No.
the whiff of it.
So one of my favorite stories about Vita and Terra is, again, for people who don't know, Genesis Ag, they like to pair animals with all of their products so that they're easier to identify. And sometimes they have a humorous story behind them. Sometimes they don't. Vita and Terra does. It's a toucan on the picture of that. And the reason it's a toucan is because one of the comments was made that, oh my goodness, that has a nose on it. So they're not wrong there.
Somehow, Mike, I feel you might have had some inspiration in the naming of that product.
I was just there. That one wasn't mine, but I'm not going to say that I didn't enjoy it. We ran some Invigorate Plus this year, and we ran it on every seed. And the reason being, we've ran Invigorate long enough. We know that on our dryland acres, that Invigorate with certain corn hybrids with our low planting populations gives us a much better chance to double ear than if we don't use Invigorate. So we had all the Invigorate bought, everything else, talked to Philip, and we hadn't ran any tests with the Invigorate Plus or anything like that before. And I was like, Philip, you know our country. You've been out here. You've spent a lot of time with us. Is this Invigorate Plus what we should go with, or should we stick with a the tried and true? He's like, no, Mike, I really think that Invigorate Plus will do you more good than the Invigorate. I said, all right, Philip, well, we'll do that. So every seed on my farm this year all has Invigorate Plus. One thing that I appreciate this year with the Invigorate is that all of the stuff that you need to treat it is in the box. You don't have to treat your water. You don't have to go buy distilled water. You don't have to do none of that stuff. Mm-hmm. So the performance is going to be consistent, across the country as we get into different water sources, chlorinated versus non-chlorinated, hard water versus soft water, all that stuff. No, this stuff, it's all going to be the same. It's all going to be right. And I think that was a cool thing with the Invigorate.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think my producers would echo that same sentiment. I know I would from the applications that I do, that having it all ready to go right there with you made life so much easier this year. So can you tell us what's different about Invigorate Plus versus the original Invigorate?
I honestly can't, Mark. Again, this is one of those proprietary magic things as near as I can tell. I think the Invigorate Plus may have some biology involved with it, but I don't know that. You may have more insight than I do. In fact, you probably do, because I tend to treat my farm pretty much as a monolithic block where you have a bunch of different customers that I'm sure you have some with the old style Invigorate, some with the new Invigorate, some with all that stuff. So maybe you've seen more than I have.
Yeah, and to kind of follow up on your comments about the Invigorate Plus, yeah, I'm pretty sure it has a biological component as well, because one of the components definitely had much more odor, which is often indicative of a Genesis biological. So yeah, and I think the target for that was, some biology to work toward through to work against some disease agents that may be in that root zone of that early seedling.
Okay.
So from my understanding, that was kind of the direction of where that product was targeted. And I did have a couple of guys that were able to do side-by-sides with it this year, with the original Invigorate versus the Invigorate Plus. And a couple of them made the comment that the Invigorate Plus came up even faster than the regular Invigorate, which they've, always been very impressed with the response of regular Invigorate also. So they were extremely happy at emergence time with the results they got from it. And then as we progressed through the season, I was actually at one producer's farm who had a side-by-side with Invigorate and Invigorate Plus. And it was late in the season. The corn was starting to, senesce and moving toward harvest time. And the Invigorate Plus actually still had a little bit better stay green in it, even late in the season for this guy than the original Invigorate did. And so, we felt like probably keeping that plant going a little bit longer was probably going to result, hopefully, in a little bit more grain fill time that would then also result in a better yield. But at this point, this time of the year, I haven't gotten any results back specifically as far as yield. So,
well, Mark, we're on a Zoom call here, so you can see my screen. I just reached over and grabbed, these are 2 ears, and these were picked obviously not long after the grain was established and set and it was trying to fill. So these are, an easy month pre-black layer.
right.
So I'm going to try to hold these up to the screen and see if you can see what I saw. So these were planted the same day, same hybrid, same fertility, same everything. And can you see that color difference in that chaff area? So the more pink was applied with an experimental something or other, and the red is the check. So that red is more mature. It was senescing earlier than the stuff where we applied the magic stuff. So that was a fun one that we did. Have not taken that one to yield yet. Don't know anything about it, but a similar type deal. Saw delayed in senescence, healthier plant later on in the growing season. So, and that was applied late. That was applied post tassel. So,
okay,
that was a fun one.
Yeah,
or potentially could be a fun one.
Well, a lot of the goal for us most of the time is to try to keep that plant green as long as we can through the season. And our goal would be able to pick corn that's practically dry enough to go into the bin off of a green stalk. We think that probably packs the best weight into our kernels.
For sure.
So,
when you can do that, that's a win.
Exactly. And that's one of the things I've been tracking this year, Mike, is through some testing is, trying to count kernels on ears, rows around, rows long, and then actually shelling them off and weighing each individual ear to look at kernel weights. And there's some pretty astounding information that's starting to show up. This is the second year that I've done some of this. I'm finding locations where 62,000 kernels is sufficient to make a bushel.
Wow.
And I'm finding other places where it's 85 and 90.
That's still not bad.
Yeah. Last year I was in some areas, some corn had been hailed and wind damage, and some of that was up around 100,000.
Right.
The interesting thing that's really showing up is you would anticipate that the test weight on something at 90 or 100,000 kernels would be substantially lighter.
Heavier.
it's, I mean, in all of that, especially this year, where I haven't necessarily had so much wind damaged corn that I checked, um, you know, there's very little difference and practically no correlation between kernel weights and what registers as the test weight. And
Right.
for me, we should be judging things from the kernel weight.
Yes,
How
that's
much
the only way.
packing into the kernel itself? What does that kernel weigh?
Right. Yeah. How many kernels to get us to a bushel?
Right, right. So have you ever played with any of that type of stuff?
We have in the past. Normally, our rule of thumb here on our irrigated stuff is 90,000 kernels make a bushel. Here, several years ago, man, we thought we had this NCGA thing, and we got out there, picked it, and man, where'd all the corn go? Is there a hole in the combine? Somebody forget to shut the truck? And those kernel counts were 120,000 is what it back figured to. Well, there's your problem.
Yeah.
Man, and what happened? I don't know. We had a cold snap in August. That year was pretty clean skies. It's not like we had smoke in the air like we have the last several years. So I've pretty much decided that I'm too dumb to figure that out anymore. And I'm getting to that age where let somebody younger than me figure it out at this point.
I don't believe that, Mike. I don't think you're ever too old to learn.
Probably not, but I'm too old to think anymore, though. I can learn. I just want somebody else to do my thinking.
So we've been here today talking with Mike Rother from Arapahoe, Colorado, kind of wrapping up some thoughts for the end of the 2020 season. Mike, we'd like to thank you for spending a little time with us and sharing what you've learned.
Always a pleasure, Mark. Thank you.
You bet. And we look forward to seeing everybody on our next podcast.